Hi, this is Misha, and had one of my old favorites out at the range. We were shooting the AK74M from Molot, imported by Fine, and so we had 545 in the what I call the bucket where we keep our ammo, and I wanted to bring another 545 out. I'd been having a little trouble with the trigger in this one. It was getting kind of trigger slap happy. I've only had this one 15 plus years. But I had worked on the trigger and wanted to make sure I hadn't worked on it too much, if you know what I mean. And I'm happy to report I did not. It worked great. So, thought I'd talk about this gun here and a little bit on the history. This is, of course, my Romanian Cugir SAR-2, imported by Century Arms way back times, from about 1999 to about 2003, although I'm sure you could still find them in shops a little after because they weren't fantastic sellers. This was my first 545 by 39 gun, and one of the first factory built 545 by 39 guns ever imported into the United States. Really the first, if you have a few exceptions. There were a tiny number, under 100, some people say as few as 50, Chinese Type 88 S's in 545. But those are almost just not worth considering everything. They just really didn't bring them in. There were also some German bolt-action rifles, people often call sniper rifles, but they were more DMRs in the caliber. But those weren't Kalashnikovs, and, well, yeah. So really the first guns to come in, AK74 types to come in, had to wait till 1997 when the Romanian, the Cugir guns started to come. Early on, they would of course do several in 7.6239, and then they would start bringing the 545 guns in under several names. For example, Romak-II, Romak-II, WUM-II, Cur-II, and what's the one I'm forgetting? I don't know. Another one, I think. They used a lot of names between 97 and 99, but then that was because a lot of people were importing them in relatively small numbers, seeing what worked. They changed the configuration here or there, low cap, high cap, used parts, new parts, thumbhole stocks. It wasn't until Century Arms kind of got the exclusive with Romania that they settled on the SAR-2, and that was really it for a long time. Now, after 03, we would get into the WASR-2, which was a very similar gun, and they would import it from about 03 to 2013. And since that time, we haven't really seen anything else from Romania in 545. If you notice by the dates, this is all well before Saigas, Vepers, arsenal guns of different types in the caliber. So these really were the first to come in any numbers and really be available. And I picked this one up. This is my original. In 2002, I believe it was the spring of, might have been late 2002. Just because it was an odd caliber. And I just thought it would be neat. I had an SAR-1, it was a great gun, and this is what was available, and I always kind of went for the oddball stuff. As imported, these were of course ban compliant. They would not have threaded barrels. The bayonet lugs would be shaved off. They would come with a standard handguard horizontal with the bulges. Now Century would ship most of these with a military stock and a US pistol grip, and they would have a dimpled double stack magwell. This comes from the factory, double stack. It's not a cutout. That's really what signifies an SAR gun versus later WASRs. And they would install some US parts. They needed 5 for these. So they would typically put in a US trigger group, US gas piston, and US pistol grip, and everything else being Romanian. They would ship these with East German 545 Bakelite mags because these were verifiable as pre-ban, as in pre-September 1994. The Romanian mags, I guess they had no way to verify if they were made before or after the ban, so they did not ship them with the steel Romanian mag you see here. It's kind of unique to Romania and Poland for using the steel mag. Everyone else used some kind of synthetic. As I've said in other videos, this is one I converted over a number of years. The first thing I did, buying a folding stock, and this is the correct Romanian military push button folding stock. And of course, even though I bought it in like 2003, I never installed it until after the sunset of the assault weapons ban. Promise. Prove otherwise. And for that folding stock, we have this upswept cocking handle. Now, some of the Romanian imports would already come with this, but the SAR-2s came with the horizontal cocking handle. Interestingly, it was long and skinny, like the upswept, but just horizontal. The reason they did that in the military was so you could still get to your handle without impacting on your stock at all. For some reason we have this kind of notch here for the safety. So actually I found a virgin carrier at KVAR, I believe it was, and put it in. Next I went to the hand guards and I took the wood off, putting on a Romanian dong grip. For many years this had a Bulgarian so-called Bakelite, it's actually fiberglass, upper, but a few years back real Romanians became available, so I swapped it out for that. Ditto for the pistol grip. I ended up putting a real Romy grip on it eventually with the concave checkering. And then I bought some 30-round Romanian steel mags, which is what they made. They never went to polymer. And a Romanian 4-pocket military mag pouch. This is the correct mag pouch for this gun. It's very loose, very nice. It's kind of got German-style pulls here. It holds 4 mags, and it's got large pockets on each side for cleaning gear or like a blank fire device, just whatever you need. They're pretty roomy pockets, frankly. These are neat pouches. I believe this came from Arms of America. And that's how the Critter set for many years. It does have its original sling it shipped with, which is this awesome Romanian sling. Very basic, but this webbing is just real comfortable and it's kind of slick, so sweat doesn't stick to it, and it's just real light and comfortable. So I kept the original sling with it. And here about 2 years ago, I had the parts sitting around forever, but finally, actually thanks to the cameraman today, I swapped out the neutered front sight base for a milspec one. Remember, these were imported during the assault weapons ban. You could not import a gun with a bayonet lug before that anyway, but even if you couldn't install one here because of the ban. But once that sunset, you could legally pop off the neutered front sight base and install a military one. This gives you a bayonet lug down here, as well as a unique thread pattern. Whereas most other AK74 guns have 24 mil, this is 22. Also, the device, while it's based on the AK74, obviously it's a little skinnier for the 22 mil threads, it's also longer, which is because the bayonet lug is in a slightly different position from on a normal kind of Soviet pattern gun. Just a little bit different. There you go. One nice thing, when they shaved off the bayonet lug on the base originally, there wasn't a good way to retain this cleaning rod, so it would just shoot out when you would go shooting. So having this brake on now, it retains my cleaning rod like it should be. Now I thought about replacing the gas block to get this lug back here, but the block is still here. It wasn't completely shaved off, and I'm really hesitant to replace gas blocks on any guns. Maybe one day I'll have the wings welded back on, but nah, it's not a big deal. I'm not gonna mess with the gun more than I have to. As original as I can keep it, I'm going to. Bayonet. So what I've tried to do here is clone, as close as possible, the Romanian military's PA86 infantry rifle. And I'm pretty close now. PA86 was developed in the 1980s, obviously, and it was made for 5.45. It actually meant that Romania was one of the last nations that would adopt the caliber to do so, because these actually didn't go into mass production until the late 80s, early 90s, and even today there's still a lot of 7.62 3.9 guns left in the Romanian military, although these are frontline. The PA86 is not really an AK74, it's more of an AKM scaled down and reworked to fire 5.45. So it has some vestigial AKM features like the 45-degree gas block, although the gas port has been altered. It takes a wire folding stock that fits in a standard rear trunnion. As you see, it's a push button. The stock itself was very much inspired by the East German, but has quite a number of Romanian flares. It's a little bit offset. It's got the button versus the lever. The idea was they could easily put on a fixed stock if they wanted to, going between fixed and folder without having to have a different gun. They had enough experience with that with the PM63 and PM65, but in reality, pretty much all PA86s had this stock. Now, while most had the vertical grip and bakelite upper, some for the Navy had the more traditional AKM horizontal grip. And yes, before anyone says anything, the early dongs were made of the bakelite material as well. But quickly they went to wood, or back to wood I should say, because they were breaking. For the mags, they just essentially scaled down their AKM mags. They also made a 40-round version for the light machine gun variant called the PM93. And really the only other major difference, the PA86 had a 4-way selector instead of 3, safe, single, 3-round burst, and auto. Otherwise it was pretty standard. We have plenty of videos really getting into this. This is still, or at least the PA86 is still standard issue in the Romanian military today. The export version is known as the AIMS74, AIMS74. And if they did a fixed stock version, it'd be the AIM74, AIM74. And that's what this is. At least as close as I can do. For a long time, the military parts were hard to get, and you had to kind of buy them when you could find them and pay what you had to pay. But here, a couple of years ago, Arms of America would import batches of these kits, and so today, finding parts kits, if you want to convert one, is extremely easy, at least compared to what it used to be. So if you're going to do an AIMS74 clone, no time like the present. That's another reason I decided to do this video now. We have another one talking about the future of 5.45, the AK74, the cartridge all out in America. So for that general info, check that out. But specific on this gun, people are paying pretty crazy money for Vepers, Segas, Arsenals in 5.45, well over $1,000. However, guns like the SAR-2 and WASR-2, which is the same gun but with a dimpleless receiver basically, really aren't commanding crazy money even on Gunbroker. You can usually find them for $600 or less in stores, maybe $700 on Gunbroker, $750 for a nice one with some mags. So if you're wanting a 5.45 factory built gun, you might consider the SAR-2 and WASR-2. They're kind of flying under the radar. And it's a good thing for people wanting a collectible or shootable, because it's a great gun, hammer forged, chrome lined, 16-inch barrel, factory, stamped receiver, serial matching, usually built from all new parts unless you get some of the early ones. And since the parts to convert it are readily available, it's not that hard to deneuter it. You just slap on the folding stock, which is just 2 screws, put on your foregrip, which is basically nothing, and then take off the front sight base and pin on a new one, which is probably the only component you might need gunsmith help with. But when you do that, you get your bayonet lug and your muzzle threads back, so it's kind of a twofer. And even the factory mags are available, at least for the time being. So this is really something that you might consider if you're in that market. They're fantastically reliable. Maybe the fit and finish is, well, let's just say it's military grade. I think they're very attractive, but then again, I like kind of that military look. They're not beauty queens, but they're going to work for you, and they're not parts gets assembled here, so you know the barrel's good. So I thought we'd just kind of spotlight the SAR-2 and subsequently the Wasser-II in 2018. And again, I needed to go out and shoot this anyway. Hadn't done it in a while. I needed to try out the trigger after it was reworked, and yes, I did get the trigger slap issue worked out, so it's a lot of fun, and this muzzle brake is very effective. Well, if you have your own Romanian 545 gun and you'd like to share about it, we'd love to hear it in the comments. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them and we'll do our best. As always, if you like the video, please click like and check out our Patreon page. And if you haven't had enough Romanian goodness, we have many other videos on these. So check out the Romanian playlist. This is Misha, and we'll catch you next time.